So here I am working for my idol, Glen Keane, on this film Aladdin, and I'm pinching myself. I'm working on a Disney film, you know. Glen's giving me scenes, and he's giving me his special magical pencil to draw with so that my in-betweens look just like his, and he's showing me not just how to animate, but how to draw like him, how he thinks, how he approaches his animation, and he's really educating me. Well, of course, I came to Disney to be an animator, not an in-betweener, and so I was determined that I was gonna animate. So during lunch times, and I'd usually stay after work when my wife had school, I'd work on these animation tests and show them to Glen and get his feedback and input and stuff. And I remember there were a lot of rough in-betweeners at the time, and they saw that what I was doing, and they said, "You're wasting your time. I've been a rough in-betweener for 10 years. They don't promote rough in-betweeners. This is as good as it gets for rough in-betweeners." And I, still a little cocky from those junior high days, and I said, "You know what? I'm gonna be promoted. I'm not gonna be a rough in-betweener for my whole life. I want to be an animator. I came here to be an animator. I'm gonna be an animator." So I just kept doing those tests. Well, then it came to crunch time on the movie. At the end of every movie, there's this crunch time where the movie's got to be done in too short a period and there's not enough people to do it. And so we work crazy hours overtime to get this movie done. And usually it's about the time that they start hiring extra animators from outside to help finish the movie. I got a phone call from the producer, which is really worried. I mean, for me, it was like getting a phone call from the principal telling you need to go see the principal. And because the only other time I'd ever talked to the producer, she was telling me I talked on the phone too much with my wife. And so I thought, oh man, am I still talking on the phone? What am I in trouble for now, So I was really scared. I go in the producer's office. It's her, one of the directors, and Glen Keane sitting in the room. And I'm like, I must really be in trouble because they got everybody here. And they sat me down and she said, "Well, Randy, we understand that you've been doing tests on the side." And I thought, that's it. They're going to tell me I can't do these tests. They can tell me I gotta go home, and I'm going to get in trouble for doing these tests. And I said, yeah, I'm trying to learn. I want to be an animator, so I'm trying to learn. And she goes, "Well, okay. Well, we're in this crunch time now, and this is a time when we usually are hiring people on. Glen suggested to us that you already know how to draw the character, and he thinks your animation is pretty good on your tests, so that maybe you could do some animation. Would you like to do some animation on Aladdin?" Okay, so here I am now, trying to be the professional. I'm going to be very serious. I don't want to be giddy and crazy because they're going to fire me if I get crazy. So I just sit there very straight, and I try to very straight face say, "I think that would be good, thank you." And the producer could see that I was holding it in, and she says, "It's okay to be happy about this, And so then I was like, yeah, of course. Oh man, I can't believe it, So I went back to my desk, and I had a scene on my desk I was supposed to be in-betweening. I got up and I went outside and I ran a few laps around the building just to burn off some of that excitement, burn off some of that energy so I could sit down at my desk and actually work. It's such an important day in my career because it was the day my dream, you can really say it's the day my dream came true. I became a Disney animator. I got to do some great scenes on Aladdin. My big scene, my big moment, which was really big for somebody who really never animated professionally before, was the scene where he's looking up after he's chased the mean prince that kicked him in the mud into the castle and called him a flea-bitten street rat. And he says, "I'm not a street rat, and I don't have fleas." And he scratches his head. He looks, and walks off. It was a really challenging scene because it was like perspective, like you're looking down on him, this down shot on him, and then he turns around and walks away, and doing that perspective walking away. It was really, really challenging. But, I had an attitude back then that's amazing, and I wish I could. I always want to get back to that. I was fearless. Maybe I was cocky. I don't know. I was fearless. I looked at it more like I just wasn't afraid to try anything. I'll do it. Yeah, give me anything. I'll make it work. I'll do it. I'll work extra hours. I'll do it over and over and over again until it's right. It doesn't matter. I'm going to figure it out. And I just was fearless about anything that was offered me. And so when they gave me this big scene, I should have been really intimidated, but I just was excited. I was just excited. Wow, that's a really great scene. I can't believe you're giving that to me. And I figured it out. I did it, you know. So then after Aladdin, I got to work on The Lion King, and I worked for an animator named Ruben Aquino. And Ruben and I really enjoyed working together. In fact, we became good friends after that. And until he retired, we ate lunch every day practically together. Just the kindest, gentlest person, real soft-spoken, never had a mean word to say about anything or anybody. I just really liked Ruben. He was just a good friend. Interestingly, he was the supervising animator on Ursula, who was this really flamboyant, kind of over-the-top character with nothing like him, but it was neat that he got to express a side of him maybe that was there somewhere in him, but you never saw it in his day-to-day personality, you know. He gave me a lot of leeway on Lion King. He basically said, you know, look, if you have a problem, you need to show it to me, go ahead and show it to me. Otherwise, I trust you, you know. Well, so there were lots of times when I would come show him because I couldn't figure something out. And in fact, one time, I did a scene where Simba was pacing back and forth, and Ruben had done the scene on either side of this scene, and I had to make it hook up with both of his scenes on either side. I was doing the scene in the middle, and I had to hook up exactly with his. And so that meant I had to figure out, you know, how many steps Simba took while he's pacing, what position he'd be in, make sure his paw was in the right position at the beginning and at the end, and it had to fit in a certain length of time. And I was just like, I animated that over and over and over again. I couldn't get it to hook up. I couldn't get it to work. So finally I took it to Ruben and I said, I just can't get this scene to hook up. How do you figure this out? How would you figure this out? Well, he took out a piece of paper and started doing math. He started doing an algebra problem. And he did this algebra problem. All right. I'm going to cut back to high school, and Mrs. Cherry was my algebra teacher, and I was drawing in class one day, because that's what I did every day in high school, was draw while they talked, and especially in math class, because I wasn't good at math, which is probably why I wasn't good at math, because I was drawing all the time. And Mrs. Cherry got after me and said, you know, you should really be paying attention here instead of drawing. And I said, it's algebra. I'm going to be an artist. When will I ever use algebra as an artist? So here, cut back to Lion King, and here I am watching over Ruben's shoulder as he's doing an algebra problem to solve an animation problem. And I thought, oh, Mrs. Cherry, I'm so sorry. You were right. I'm so sorry. I wished I would have paid better attention in algebra class. And so he took a ruler and marked down, here's your footsteps, left, right, left, right, left, right, and front, back, front, back, front, back, and just follow that, and you should start and end on the right position. And went back, did it once, worked perfectly. So he was absolutely right. But yeah, so Lion King was a great experience, and I got promoted to a full animator on that, and got to do a lot of wonderful scenes with Simba, adult Simba, for Ruben, and really enjoyed that experience. After Lion King, I got to work with Glen again on Pocahontas, and it's pretty neat because in 3 films I was working on the main character in all 3 films. I got to work on Aladdin in Aladdin, and then Simba in The Lion King, and now Pocahontas in Pocahontas. Pocahontas was a really challenging film that we shot live action reference for all the footage of Pocahontas. Because Jeffrey Katzenberg, who was, you know, in charge of the studio at the time, wanted to make a very realistic film. I think he had dreams of getting another Academy Award like he did for Beauty and the Beast, nomination like he did for Beauty and the Beast for Best Picture. And so he wanted to make this very epic, naturalistic film. And so we shot this live action, and we're directed to stick really close to it. And at times I found that a little stifling. It was challenging for me because I felt like all the creativity was taken out of my hands and given to the actor. And I just had to follow what the actor was doing. And that is not the case when you use live action properly. And I learned that on Pocahontas. That's the important lesson that I learned, is how to use live action properly. And when I used it properly, that's when my scenes turned out really the best scenes that I did, or when I used it properly. It wasn't tracing back, it wasn't following it exactly every tiny movement, but finding the main idea of the scene and really just following that. But there was one scene in particular, and that I animated, where she's going over a waterfall and through the rapids as she's singing. And I remember we shot live action for it. And Glen at the time had been really busy, and so he would send a couple of us animators to the live action shoots to watch and give notes and stuff if we had thoughts on it. And so I was, in this particular live action shoot, we'd put the actor on a little furniture dolly and tied a bunch of ropes to it and pulled her around the room, and she had an oar like she was rowing, so it would, and then the guy holding the camera was kind of doing a handheld thing where he was sweeping around her and stuff, and trying to get this real dynamic camera movement like she was in rapids going toward us and away from us and all this kind of stuff, you know. And so we shot a bunch of that stuff. And I remember later back in my office working on the scene, and I just can't, I'm watching this video footage and I'm like, I don't know how I can make this work with the layout and with what they want in the scene. I just can't figure out how to make this work. But they really wanted us to stick to the live action. So I decided I need to go talk to Glen and see what he thinks. So I went to Glen and I said, look, I can't figure out how to make this work, this live action work for the scene. And he goes, let me see. And he put the cassette in. It was like on a video cassette. And he put it in his VHS player. And he watched it through. And he rewound it and watched it again. And he just really concentrating. And I'm sitting back going, man, he's going to make me use it. I don't know what I'm going to do. He's going to make me use it. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. I kept thinking, you know. And he kept looking. He watched it probably 3 or 4 times, just really studying it. You know what, Randy? I think you're just going to have to animate this one. And I was like, oh, thank goodness. Thank goodness. Oh, thank you, Glen. Okay. So I went back and I did. I just animated it. And I had so much fun animating that scene because it was just moving her around and hair flying, and I don't know, it was just a lot of fun. It was a very freeing moment for me, where it was completely me, you know.